Hey everyone, George Christie here again with Wine Industry Network. Welcome to the final session of our new packaging conference called packXplore. Now, this final session is dedicated to how technology is being integrated into our packaging to drive more consumer engagement. The title of this session is Driving Consumer Engagement, Exploring the Future of Interactive Packaging. So we've got three great speakers today, beginning with Jean-Charles Boisset. But before we bring up Jean-Charles, our goal is to make sure that our conferences are as interactive as possible as well. So to do that, we actually pre-record these sessions. We do that for quality purpose, but we also do it so that our speakers can be in the chat room taking your questions as they come in. So please, if something comes to you, type that question in and one of our speakers will take it on. So I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker for this particular session, Jean-Charles Boisset with JCB Collections. And Jean-Charles is going to talk a little bit about how they've adopted NFC technology into their packaging and what that experience has been like. Jean-Charles, welcome.
Thank you, George. And we're delighted you're doing such a conference. And this is such a great choice to bring wine into the world and to allow us to tell you what we're doing in the wine world to make it more interactive.
Well, Jean-Charles, literally since you came on the scene here in Northern California, it's been all about creating an experience for people that visit your properties, right? Even just look at your background, right? Everything is about the consumer experience at the properties. So I was not surprised as you started to venture into what you're doing right now, but tell everybody a little about what decided you to make you go down this path to leverage the NFC chip into your packaging?
Well, thank you, George. Just as a background, you need to realize I was very fortunate to be born making wine. So as a young child, I've had the experience to taste wine, make wine, and to see people around me discovering wine. So this is why we build experience, and it's always for the consumer. It's always for the person who's going to drink it. So wine could be a very complex and very subjective incredible elixir or gift of gods, if you wish. And subjective in many ways because some people like a certain wine, some people may like another style of wine. So what we wanted to do, besides having a beautiful package, is build an interaction with the people enjoying the wines and using all the modern equipment like our best friend these days, which is the phone, and allowing this extraordinary NFT technology to tell you about the wine itself. So it's a talking object, and it's an object that allows you to communicate, to speak, to make you feel and vibrate something very different. So when we discovered the NFT technology, we were elated, we were excited because, you've got to realize, George, we spend years and years making wine. It's a very introspective, personal, and lonely experience sometimes, and difficult to express all the things we have in mind to give you in this glass of wine. So this technology, for the first time ever in the history of wine, allows us to have that direct personal rapport together.
Well, I love what you're doing because there's no substitute for what happens when you bring someone to one of your properties, right? I've had the privilege of myself of visiting a number of the properties, and it's something you never forget. So to me, the taking the technology now and trying to replicate that experience to the best is that you can is just incredible. So tell the audience a little bit, how does it work?
So how it works, you have a wonderful tag. We purposely made it white for all of you to see today, but it's actually a beautiful black tag.
Nice.
As you could see, hopefully we're going to zoom in a little bit so you could see it. That's the tag, which carries my initial or the branding. You could see that tag is absolutely gorgeous.
Yep.
And you basically, very simply, bring your phone to it. You're going to have, boom, technology opening up. And here I just opened it, as you noticed.
Yeah.
I know the light is very bright, but there it is.
Yeah.
It brought me directly to my own self telling you about the wine. So it's very cool because we obviously directed the way we wish. In this case, you're at home with this wonderful bottle of wine with your friends, and you say, well, let's hear from the winemaker. Instead of just purely going to the website, you do this. It took literally 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I appeared in your Safari Google app. It's a JCB app, and there it is. And you have the whole technical description, video, information about the wines, and then any link you wish. So we could tell a story, which is very important for us because we all about storytelling in wine. It's all about the sense of place. You could see the gorgeous imaging of where the wine is from. In this case, Napa Valley, the rolling hills, how it's made. So I think it makes us more intelligent as well as a consumer to be able to, in a very fast moment, get to learn about any products there is. In this case, it's wine. And it's important because, you know, George, as you drink wine, and I know you're an avid wine collector, you will learn about wine. Not every wine are the same, luckily, which makes it very fascinating and interesting. But it's a complex world. Where does it come from? Which areas of Napa Valley? How was it vinified? How was it aged? What's the flavor profile? What food would you like to have the wine with? So we believe this technology, and in general, interactive packaging allows you to tell that story that for years we dream of conveying to our guests and consumer.
Well, I love it. And I love that it presents the opportunity for you to bring your personality to the customer, right? To the consumer right there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, there are a lot of great wines out there, and sometimes what makes them different are the people behind those wines, right? So this is just another great tool to introduce the people behind the wines to the consumer, which I love.
Absolutely. And to your point, you know, I wish I could meet every people enjoying our wines,
right?
Because I love people and I love that interaction. So that technology, if it could link us to those wonderful guests around the United States and the world who want to connect with us as well, it's a possibility. So you go on our website and obviously you get to that link and you can connect directly with me.
Right.
And you can engage a discussion with me via Facebook, via Instagram, or any way you wish. So it never happened before without those great technologies.
Right. Now, for the marketing people in the audience, and I know there's a lot of marketing people that are watching this, tell us a little about what we're able to measure all of the interaction that are taking place and really see the results of your efforts.
The results are staggering because you can see how many people connect, how many people actually watch the video, how much time they spend on the video. And then you could see, obviously, that wonderful guest on our website enjoying themselves to discover other wines. So it's a wonderful way to enter our world. It's a wonderful way to get educated about our world. And reversely, it's a wonderful way for us to connect with the world at large.
Right.
Because often you're alone in the winery, in the barrel room, tasting those wonderful wines. And we want to be with you, George. We want to be in your home. And, you know, let's say you would want to FaceTime or you would want to connect. I would love to do that. So it allows us, hopefully, to do that soon, too.
That's such great news. Now, have you been able to measure how consumers are reacting to this? I'm not sure how long it's been out in the marketplace, but what's the reaction been like so far?
Well, wonderful. In fact, I was on the weekends in our tasting rooms and people were playing with it at the table because we have it in the room we're in right now, the JCB Lounge in Yountville. And at the Ritz-Carlton, we have it on tables. And people say, what is it? So we have a little table tent explaining what it is, and people really play with it in the real sense. Yeah. Because, you know, they come with their significant other, they want to be entertained. And it's a great way, besides the person you can have giving you a tasting, to be entertained. So I think it's very successful. It's forcing us, of course, to show the technology, to show how it works, because it's not always that intuitive for people to see a sticker and say, point your phone.
Right.
But more and more, we're getting used to those kinds of things. So I think it's a great way to connect.
Yeah, I do too. And the fact that you, like you said, people are playing with it, right? That's by definition, that's engagement, right? And it's something that would be impossible to do 10 years ago.
Impossible to do. And again, even 10 years ago, remember, we barely had a website on the back of the label. We barely had even an Instagram or Facebook account. So I think all those things are accelerating. We really ourselves as a winery and a collection of wineries very open to any new technology. So anyone on your seminar who has great ideas, connect with us, because we want to create a closer link with anybody interested in wine.
That's thank you for that offer. Do you anticipate implementing the NFC technology into other brands within the JCB portfolio?
Absolutely. We've been testing it now for 6 weeks. It's been very exciting. It has obviously a cost attached to it because we need to apply the sticker or incorporate in the label, but we will for sure bring it to many other packaging that we have. I mean, you got to realize as well, George, Raymond Vineyards has a velvet label. Right. So we want to be able to explain why the velvet label. Others have a jewelry. We want to explain why and what to do with the jewelry when you finish the bottle, or how to use the bottle as a decanter. So we want to engage the guest into our packaging through this. So the answer is yes, full force.
Well, Jean-Charles, thank you so much for your time. But before we go, do you have any final words or predictions for how you see this technology being used in the future?
Yes, I think it allows us to provide greater content for our guests. It forces us to be more precise about our storytelling and how we want people to enjoy the wine, to serve it with food, and to have fun with it. And finally, I really believe it's building an enormous web of contacts of people wanting to track bottles, communicate with bottles, and people with the same taste around the world. Like people who like Porsche cars. Okay, we all communicate together on the world map. That allows you to do the same thing with our wines, people who like of wine. So really as well to narrow down the likes of styles that are very unique. So I'm very bullish about it.
Well, you've always been a great innovator and really a true leader when it comes to creating a consumer experience. And I wish you all the success in the world. I know that this is going to be great, and I will not be surprised when you walk down the wine aisle 10 years from now and you're just tapping bottles as you go. And it's because of people like yourself, Jean-Charles, who get out in front. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your experience with our audience.
Well, and for having us, and George, for you to do this amazing convention about packaging and exploration and interactivity, because that's what it's all about. So thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Jean-Charles. Well, thank you, Jean-Charles. That was fantastic. Very exciting, and I wish you all the success. I think it's going to be a huge hit. And as I said in our interview, I will not be surprised to see this technology being adopted by wineries of all sizes in the very near future. Now, the second segment of the day, we've got another great speaker, Ed Rice, who's the executive director for Affinity Creative. And Ed is going to talk a little bit about a marketing program that they put together with the goal of creating more consumer engagement. Now, it's not a wine industry example, but as is often the case, we in the wine industry, especially when it comes to technology, have a lot to learn from what other industries are doing to drive more engagement in their marketing. So Ed's going to talk a little bit about this particular project. I think you're going to love it. And I am certain it's going to give some great ideas on how you might be able to integrate this into your marketing going forward. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to hand it off to Ed and let Ed take it from here.
Thank you, George. And hello, everyone. My name is Ed Rice. I'm Executive Director at Affinity Creative Group, and we're a specialist agency focusing on those essential points of brand influence in dealing with consumers to get them attracted, engaged, and involved with your brand. And today we'll take a little journey on the Redwood Empire. And this is all about building a brand promotional campaign, an ecosystem, if you will, from the shelf to the screen to ultimately consumer engagement. So sit back, relax, and we'll do a little sharing here. So Redwood Empire, it's a fast-growing craft whiskey brand in Northern California, and interestingly, they've used Redwood Empire, where they're based, as their brand name. And it's an offering of three different types of unique whiskey. There's a bourbon, there's an American whiskey blend, and a rye. And each one is named after a distinctive redwood tree. Pipe Dream happens to be the one you're looking at here. And I'll explain that unusual visual in the glass. They have an association and a partnership with a tree planting initiative with Trees for the Future. And their goal and their commitment is to plant a tree for every bottle sold. So because their business is based in the heart of redwood country, they really take sustainability and livability to heart. And it's a real serious part of the way they manage their business. So in an effort to get more visibility on the program, as well as additional sales, the client came to Affinity asking us to create a 360 campaign that would really get the message across about this initiative, as well as feature their products and pull in a wider audience for the brand. They wanted to tie in with Earth Day and Arbor Day, and rather than just leave that to a single day, expand it to a full month-long campaign. So the challenge was to develop that campaign for them and then leverage technology that would enable that campaign and the messaging to move throughout, as we said, an entire ecosystem of different types of media, different venues, and on a whole degree of different platforms. And we'll take you through that shortly. So if we look at the next slide, this will give you a sense of the desired user interaction and the customer journey. So the idea was to come up with a campaign that would take advantage of the look and feel of the packaging, the actual packaging itself, whether it's on the shelf, in a display. It might be seen on point of purchase. It could be a case card. Originally, the idea was also to have a heavy on-premise component. Obviously, because of last year, that was sidelined a bit. But the idea was to generate and capture consumers and drive them to a microsite. So the microsite would explain the campaign, and going into much greater detail than you could ever do on a back label or on a bottle, and really grab the consumer's attention. And the idea was to do that with some sort of a competition, of a contest. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment. And then capture consumer information to be able to generate an email drip campaign, a remarketing campaign, and also encourage consumer sharing of the information of the contest, as well as information about the brand. So you can see that there's a very extensive journey throughout different platforms and different experiences. So first, what's the campaign? What's the idea? So the client wanted to develop a communication strategy, the campaign idea, the campaign name, the look and feel of the campaign, and just capture attention and interest in a very compelling visual way. And this is some of the early ideation that we developed here. You can see a rough sketch, kind of the rough look and feel, the initial idea of showing a sapling coming out of a whiskey glass. Client really liked that idea. The buy one, get one tree, the client felt that needed to be explained a little bit more, although they did like kind of the straightforward communication. So ultimately, this is where we landed. And very straightforward communication, that powerful graphic depiction, the photographic depiction of the sapling coming out of the whiskey glass, and enjoy Earth Month with a redwood. So just very straightforward communication. You'll notice that the tonality of the communication, the look and feel, is very reflective of the label look and feel, and the bottle and the label and that whole vibe informed all the communication materials in the campaign, as well as a QR code that was not on the bottle, unfortunately, because the bottles were already labeled. But the QR code was placed as closely in proximity to the bottle as possible. So you'll see in a moment, we did neckers, we did, these are shelf talkers, case cards. We tried to make that QR code as ubiquitous as possible. And, they say the death of the QR code was announced prematurely because QR codes are back. And I think the pandemic also really helped the resurgence based on contactless interactions and in menu displays and et cetera. But the QR code is definitely back in force. And as you'll see in a moment, it's a great way to effortlessly grab the consumer, because all you need now is your cell phone, and the camera feature on the phone will work with any QR code on most phones these days. In fact, if you'd like, you can even use your phone on that QR code that's on the screen right now, and that will take you to the site that we'll highlight in a moment. So that was the idea, was to capture the attention of the consumer using this whole brand look and feel of the product, and then quickly get them to a microsite that not only explains the buy one and we'll plant a tree, but also a further motivator, which was this contest to win a redwood glamping experience. And it was like a 3-day weekend, all expenses paid, really high-end camping experience in the redwoods, spending money, a tour of the distillery. It was a really, really compelling way to capture consumer information. These are the neckers that I talked about, and it's a tried and true technique to bring additional attention to your package. And as I mentioned, this was a way to get the QR code attached to the bottle. We see QR codes on back labels all the time now, and if you want to go into your brand story with great detail, perhaps you want to talk about your production processes. Perhaps you want to do a mini tour. A QR code and a associated microsite is a great way to tell your story, your brand story. So we're starting to see clients leverage this technology more and more. So if you did use your phone camera on the screen, you may have beat me to this slide, but this is an image of the microsite, the landing page of the microsite. We have a little loading device there to keep the viewer hanging on to let the site load, because there is that interactive feature of sliding the seed into the shot glass to plant your seed. We find that if you can engage the consumer, have the consumer, this is that old principle of direct mail, right? Where they ask you to tear out a sticker and paste it on the reply card. So this is like the technology evolution of that idea, is to get direct involvement in activity, which tends to keep the consumer lingering on your site. So the microsite, and believe there's a loop here that is showing you, yeah, there it is, how this moves. And it's just a little feature to make it special. What I'd like to point out, though, is that although this is a website, it has that same look and feel, the illustrative style that's found on the label. So you're getting this continuous brand journey. The look and feel is consistent. The consumer gets the vibe, feels the vibe, even though they are now in a different media. So, and that's a principle that we endeavor to follow at the agency, is to establish a brand look and feel and keep that theme as a mnemonic device, which aids consumer recall of the brand. So, yeah, then there's some CRM integration here, and lots of opportunities to share the microsite from a social media standpoint. And these are just some more screen captures from the site. And if you have the opportunity to go to the site, which we encourage you to do so, it's a really nice experience. It doesn't feel like a tech experience. It feels very natural and very much in keeping with the brand. There's part of the microsite that is a smaller abbreviated version of their main website, which tells a little bit about the three whiskeys and their flavor notes and attributes, and how they're made. It details the principle of their Trees for the Future partnership, as well as going into detail on the glamping experience. And we also wanted to make sure that the microsite was, of course, optimized for the mobile platform. Because obviously, if someone's taking a shot of the QR code, you want the microsite to just have that same experience on your phone as it might be on a desktop or on a tablet. In fact, most consumers now interact with brands and their websites and their communication on their phones probably 80% of the time. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that the sweepstakes definitely had a high level of interesting attributes to it. So we worked with the client to just think about the way the weekend would be communicated and the various features of it, and just to underscore that. Hey, this brand it's all about the experience of the redwoods and its association with that feeling of being in nature, and just the majesty and the wonder of all that as well. So this is the entry form that you find on the microsite, and again, there's a lot of imagery, and there's the adventure of a high-end camping experience is depicted, and so that you get a sense of that, and you'll be motivated to enter the contest, as well as share your email information. Great way to build a mailing list, and with permission, of course. So I'll share some metrics at the end of the presentation, and you can see that this turned out to be very successful for the client. So this will give you an idea of how we extended the campaign into social media and also into email. Because once we had the email of the consumer, we would continue to circle back. I believe we designed like 4 different emails, different types of content, just reminding consumers they had entered the contest, encouraged them to bring their friends to the site to also enter the contest, as well as talking about the products, reminding them if they buy a bottle of Redwood Empire that we're going to plant a tree, and just to just stay in touch. So a nice little drip campaign with the email capture. And again, you can see that same thematic look and feel of the brand that starts with the package and then carries through all platforms and all types of communication. And then, of course, also part of the social strategy beyond email, heavy Instagram presence, heavy Facebook presence, Essential to keep those strategies and campaigns fresh is, at least we've found, is really stunning photography. We're fortunate. We have a really great photographer on staff and a videographer as well, as a matter of fact. We've got a great photo studio that we can build and change sets and just do the right lighting to capture the cocktail culture. Cocktails can be very, very difficult to shoot. And often we might have to do a composite of maybe 3 or 4 different angles of a shot to bring it to life. But to really romance the amber glow of the liquid, and the king cube in the glass, and you make this content available for social sharing as well as for the brand sharing on Instagram, Facebook, and with other communities. So, and then we developed a whole social calendar for them throughout this month, and then extended beyond the contest as well. But important to plan this out so that there's new content coming to the consumer on a regular basis without wearing out your welcome. And you can get a sense here of how that photography is utilized as content in the campaign. And again, the power of really strong photography that highlights your product in appropriate settings. And then you can also see reminders about the microsite, and encouraging folks to visit the microsite if they did not encounter the QR code at retail or on premise as well. And then part of that was also really romancing and communicating why every consumer should enter the contest. And nice headlines. You can see that we've used the topography from the brand standards, and again, pulling in a little bit more color to attract attention, to engage the consumer, but also being very much in keeping with the brand vibe. And I mentioned that we're fortunate to have a terrific videographer on staff, and we're doing more and more videos for clients just because consumers are getting used to it. Consumers are expecting to be entertained as they're being marketed and sold. And we find that the video medium, when executed appropriately, can be a really powerful selling tool for a brand, especially a brand like this one. We're demonstrating how a cocktail is made and what that process is like. It's just great visual eye candy, and it's informative as well. And plus, it has high appetite appeal. So, yeah, I think we can give you a taste of this right now. Okay, so let's talk about results and what the trade calls KPIs, right? Those key performance indicators. The numbers are just phenomenal. Tremendous increase in new Facebook fans for the brand, 175% jump. 36% increase in actively participating Instagram followers. And the client was just so thrilled. It exceeded all their goals. I think the client's goal was like to increase participation by like 7,500 users, and they more than doubled that. So client very, very well pleased with new social media fans. As far as the sweepstakes is concerned, 18,000, almost 19,000 entries, exceeded the client's goal of 12,000. So client was very pleased. You know, when you run one of these campaigns, you often wonder, will anyone be interested? Will anyone enter? And that was not a problem. So that was a great result. And you know, often people are a little timid or reluctant to provide their emails, but in this case, you know, almost 9,000 new email subscribers, significant expansion of their email list, which is just great for direct-to-consumer marketing. So, you know, the consumer had a much lower goal in mind. The client thought, you know, if we get like 500, we'll be lucky. And it was a significant jump in their email subscription list. Just, you know, a lot of impressions. Like when you add all of them up throughout the whole ecosystem, we're talking like, you know, 2.5 million impressions, which is pretty significant exposure to a relatively small brand. You know, this is a craft whiskey brand in Northern California, and it's had a lot of great exposure for a new brand trying to get out the word. And then, you know, just a lot of active engagement, you know, 42,000 points of engagement and a lot of clicks, you know, just, again, a lot of interaction. Client was really thrilled. So ultimately, what does all this mean? You know, it's ultimately about shipping products, right? And getting product depletions. And in the words of our clients, the shipments went through the roof. They just had explosive growth, increased demand, and you know, they're increasing their production schedule based on the campaign. So that's it for Redwood Empire. And at this point, I will say thank you and ask if there's any questions that I might answer.
Thank you, Ed. Super interesting. And as I said earlier, I think that there are a lot of people in our audience that are going to see what you've done and connect the dots between that and what they can be doing for their own particular wine brand. Our final session of the day is going to be led by Paul Salcedo. Paul is the CEO and co-founder of BottleVin, and Paul's going to continue this conversation with regard to how technology is being adopted in our packaging and being used to drive more consumer engagement. But Paul's also going to paint a picture for what the capabilities are going forward and how we might be using this technology 2, 5, 10 years in the future. So this is really exciting, and we're really happy that Paul could be with us today. So I'm going to hand it off to Paul and let him take it from here.
Thanks, George. Thanks for inviting us, BottleVin. And today I'll be talking about the future of retail and consumer engagement with smart products. Don't forget also, as a reminder, we are live in the live chat room. So go ahead and ask me questions while we're having the presentation here. So as I said, I'm starting off here with future retail and consumer engagement. We are doing that with smart products, AKA the IoT devices. If you don't know what IoT devices are, there are the Internet of Things. And these are devices like connected appliances, like a refrigerator or even a TV, Ring doorbells. A friend of mine makes connected license plates, wearables, which are like your Apple Watch or your Fitbit, and of course, BottleVin with smart bottles. So the future of retail. Amazon has changed that landscape quite a bit. If you think about it, they've just changed the way people shop. I try not to go into a retail store because essentially it's too convenient. Amazon usually delivers anywhere between a day to 2 days for me. So just shopping from online just works. You've got majority of the retail businesses that have e-commerce or m-commerce. If you don't know what m-commerce is, that is mobile commerce. And there's delivery services, curbside pickup, And smartphones are just changing retail in general. In 2020, e-commerce went from an emerging business strategy to a business necessity. The pandemic accelerated that growth and revealed the necessity for businesses to build a strong e-commerce platform. So I know during the pandemic, I talked to many wineries, as well as there were a lot of wineries that didn't have mobile-friendly websites. And I know to date, even a lot of wineries are actually revamping their e-commerce sites to be mobile-friendly. Overall, customer experiences and expectations and habits have changed. Technology is like redefining methods of purchase and product research with your smartphones. Consumers, they want a direct connection and authentication with their brands. They want to make sure that's an authentic experience. And on-demand products are 24/7. Everyone is, you just expect it. Your phone's with you all the time. So if you're at your house or you're on a trip or you're at the store, you can grab your phone, look at for information, and get that product info. And then QR and NFC codes are now recognized as quick access for purchasing and for the information. QR codes also during the pandemic started being used for contactless information and engagement. So if you actually look at it, you will notice out in society that, in retail, that there's a ton of QR codes out there that you didn't see before. So mobile first, what is mobile first? Smartphones are changing the way we communicate and find information, as I mentioned. BottleVin is a mobile first platform. And so what is mobile first? That's where you focus your business strategy with mobile users as a priority. So you are concentrating on the mobile phone, the iPhone or the Android. That is where you are looking at your business is going to be doing their shopping or finding info on your product. How many smartphones are there globally? There's quite a bit. So there's 900 million iPhones and there's 3 billion Androids out there. Statista forecasts that 72.9% of all e-commerce will be m-commerce by 2021. And maybe some of you haven't heard of m-commerce, but that's what they're calling these days. M-commerce is mobile commerce, and that's essentially shopping on your phone. According to IWSR, the global e-commerce market for wine and spirits is expected to increase 42% over last year, and mobile has become the preferred way to get online. And so and it's a big change. I think many of you that are watching that are in the wine industry and are producers understand how important e-commerce is right now. So yesterday's consumers, the way I say it, but it's actually today's consumers as well. But you have the brick and mortar, you have traditional shelf talkers, you have end caps and paper literature. That's kind of what's been going on for years. Today's consumers and what is happening, as well as in the future, is digital online. Digital online is again, a lot of shoppers have just moved to digital online shopping. You've got smart products. Again, a BottleVin smart bottle. You look at ring phones, all those things I mentioned earlier. And then you have social media and influencers. So that is where I think a lot of people in the wine industry are just starting to get on board and learn about how that works. And so I got a great insight. So social media and then influencers. Influencers for me are kind of a eye-opener. I learned a lot about them during the pandemic. My son watches a good amount of YouTube, and I got into looking at YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, of course, and Instagram. But one of the things that stuck out for me was my son watches an influencer. His name is Mr. Beast. The kid is 23 years old. And he has 65 million subscribers on YouTube. It's pretty crazy. The kid is incredible, though. He has a give back channel. So he gives away a lot of things. Like he was giving away cards for $100. He buys out retail stores that just help them with their business, especially during the pandemic. And it's a pretty uplifting experience when you watch the videos. But one of the things that he did during the pandemic was he launched a ghost kitchen. And if you don't know what a ghost kitchen is, it's a delivery service only restaurant, like through a DoorDash or Uber Eats. and he called it Mr. Beast Burgers. Well, of course, my son, being a Mr. Beast fan, he loves he loves Mr. Beast. So he's like, I want a Mr. Beast burger. Can we order them through DoorDash? Or it might have been another one of the services. I'm not sure if it was DoorDash. But anyways, we ordered it to try it out. Burgers were pretty good. Fries were pretty good. They're nothing spectacular, but they were good quality. But if you think of me as one family my son is one person, and you times that by the 65 million subscribers he has, think about the marketing on that part, that number. It's pretty incredible. And these influencers are pretty crazy, that especially when they're over the 10 million mark. So how do connected products work? I got a nice little diagram over here just to give you kind of an understanding. So the cloud, which everyone refers to, which is literally just a bunch of servers and data centers. But how that works out, and I'm going to use my little pointer here. We're going to use, of course, NFC or QR enabled wine bottles. So what happens is this first step here is you have to have a label that has an NFC or a QR code on it. You then after that, you look at the you need a device to scan that. So you get your iPhone or your Android device and you scan that label, and that data goes to the cloud. Typically, you use there's an ID associated with that scan. So once that ID is figured out, it associates it with the content that was provided by the winery. So right here is where the content provided by the winery is in the cloud, and now is going to get delivered from the cloud to your phone as an engaging experience. So that's where the content is important, because if you have really engaging content, like a great video of the winemaker or the production or something of that, that's where people will start engaging with their smartphones. And then on the last piece is the track consumer data. So these are actionable insights to market and sell. So you can look at common things by getting the data. So typically you get an IP is what it is, and that you can get on the basic level that the product was scanned, or if it was or where the location is, typically California or what state, or even as finite as a city that they're in. So I've talked a lot kind of like overview about things, but my primary way that I like smart products are using QR codes and NFC. There are a bunch of other ways that you can do that. So I'm going to go kind of over QR codes and NFC right now. So QR codes, I believe a lot of the wineries that I've been talking to are starting to put QR codes back on. And QR codes, I know that back in the day, they kind of failed in the wine industry. And I know when I talked to a lot of wineries pre-pandemic, they had this thing where they didn't want to even think about putting a QR code on their bottle of wine. And that has definitely changed. But a lot of the reasons why QR codes didn't work back in the day was, one was everyone didn't have a smartphone. Some people were still using flip phones. Two, all the phones weren't connected to broadband. So you didn't have an internet connection. And three, since you didn't have an internet connection, the other part you needed was an application. So you needed a mobile app to actually read that QR code. Nowadays, fortunately, is the iPhone and Androids, both in their native cameras, support QR code reading. So literally, it's built into the phone. So there's no reason not to have a QR code, because you just open up your camera and they'll figure out how to read it. So back to what I was saying, when you make sure that your QR codes, if you're putting them on your wine, that they're dynamic. And there are many platforms that actually offer a dynamic QR code service, BottleVin being one of them, but there are also other ones out there. I believe we're the only ones that actually specialize in the wine and spirit market. Anyways, the difference between a static and a dynamic QR code is static QR codes can't be changed. What do I mean by that? So what I mean by that is, let's say you want a QR code that goes to www.paul.com, and I put that on my bottle of wine. Well, let's say in production somewhere that QR code got changed to www.pall, not paul.com. And now your QR code's on millions of bottles of wine, and it's all pointed to Paul, PALL.com. There's really no way to fix that. Unless you can somehow convince that person that owns the domain, or if the domain is open to buy, then buy that domain, and now you can redirect things. So that's what I mean, it can't be changed. They can't be tracked. So back to some of the beauty about a dynamic QR code, you can actually do some tracking and find some customer, the customer's experience and the history of what they're doing. So you can't track that as well. So again, I really, every winery out there listening to me, make sure you do a dynamic. And I'm going to tell you, so with the dynamic QR code, it can be changed. You can redirect that anywhere. And I have a great example with a winery that we partner with. I provided them a sample QR code and told them, say, hey, if you're going to use these in production, make sure you let me know so I can give you a production QR code. Well, miscommunication happened, and the sample QR code actually went to production. And fortunately, we have dynamic QR codes, and we were able to take that QR code and redirect it to the winery website and make sure that all those bottles of wine that got that QR code were now able to do that. If that didn't happen, we wouldn't have been able to correct that problem. The second is, again, it can be tracked. On a basic level, you can get an IP of the phone that's being. If you don't know, by the way, if you don't know what an IP address is, think of it as your house address. You have usually, a lane. Let's call Rose Lane, and let's say the number on Rose Lane is 105. So the 105 number is what is related to in the internet universe as the IP address, and so these IP addresses can kind of give you basic information. And the basic information is where the scan was located from. So typically that could be city and state, depends on how that IP information, is provided. And two is you can get when it was scanned. So if you know what product that QR code is associated with, you will also know what product was scanned. And that's the beauty about dynamic QR codes, is that you now know which products are actually being scanned out in the real world. So NFC benefits. So NFC, I'm a big proponent for. It's what we built BottleVin on. Our first campaign was an NFC campaign, and if you look at all the signs are starting to point to NFC as a future of smart products. And the reasons why are both Apple and Google have adopted NFC support and readability on all their phones, starting with the iPhone 6 Plus. And Google Android Nexus S that was released in 2011. Apple was a little bit late to the game. I think they wanted to try coming up with their own technology, but around so when I started doing research on BottleVin, that was around 2018. Apple just opened up NFC to developers. But Apple was using NFC in terms of Apple Pay. That's what runs Apple Pay, which is my next point, which is, Apple Pay is run by NFC, Google Pay, and a majority of the credit cards. If you see those chips on your credit cards, most of them are NFC chips. And you can actually take your QR code and just tap any terminal that accepts an NFC payment. Ease of use. Again, it's simple tap of your phone. So you use your phone to tap on whatever the NFC device is, and it will bring back all the information and data on that. And then secure. NFC is secure. It has serial numbers and it has secure keys built into the chips themselves. And so that's, again, it was built that way. It's how they do, a lot of, transactions, money transactions with purchases and stuff like that. So NFC, I believe, is the future. On top of it, the tapping of the phone is just a cool feature. So QR codes and NFCs are everywhere these days. If you pay attention and you go out there and just look at it, you'll start to realize it. QR codes, NFC, just look at it. Go into a retail place, go into Costco, go into Home Depot, Best Buy, UPS, grocery stores. I was in Home Depot, saw a big banner with QR codes on how to build a deck or how to do this. Grocery stores, and you're seeing it on food. UPS, use a QR code to return your products from Amazon. Actually, that's a data matrix card, but it's a similar technology. Payments, Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal is actually doing QR code payments. I haven't personally used a QR payment yet, but they are supporting it. I know over in Asia and Europe, they've been doing that quite a while. Products, a ton of products are using QR codes and NFC. Ring devices, Teslas are using NFC for their car keys. Sonos, Wi-Fi setups, and you set up your new Wi-Fi in the house. Food, apparel, online and online user manuals. Airlines are using them for their tickets. TV and entertainment, broadcasts, game shows, advertising is crazy. Almost, I watch KTV news here in the Bay Area, and they always have a QR code in the bottom left corner. Game shows, I saw Lego Masters promoting last year a QR code to learn more about the game show. It's just becoming, a de facto for communicating. Events, sports venues, on the tickets, QR codes. Again, barcodes or some site, but most of them have moved the QR codes. Movie theaters, QR codes for barcodes. What's funny is I don't think people realize this, but I tell this all the time to a lot of customers we've talked to about the technology, is that QR codes were actually around quite a bit before the pandemic, and I don't think people realized it because typically most airlines and most movie theaters and event-driven were all using QR codes prior to the pandemic. So some smart product examples. I'm going to use my little pointer here to show you, but if you take a look out here, you have Sonos speakers. A friend of mine asked me to set up his Sonos speakers over Memorial Day weekend, and it was a pretty incredible experience. They literally, if you buy from the Sonos store, they can associate the products you bought with the mobile app. And so what happened was I opened up the mobile app, I registered his email address that he purchased with, and all the products were in the mobile app. And then I would just tap he said, what speaker would you like to set up? And I would tap the speaker would make an audio sound, and then it would show me with a graphic video on the app of tap the speaker here, which they would use NFC. And it's a little small right here, but if you take a look at these images, these are kind of the steps, and that check mark is where you tap the phone onto the speaker, and now it automatically registers the speaker, and it automatically asks you, where is the position of the speaker? Where is this? Is it a center channel? Is it a right channel, a left channel, whatever it is? So NFCs are built into the Sonos speakers. All their newer ones, or older ones, you enter in serial numbers or or the barcode. So it's a pretty amazing experience with the mobile app. Tesla cars are, the friends that have Teslas, that's their key. It's run by NFC. It's the phone. The phone is their key to, start their car, open their door, do everything. Everyone uses their phone. Apple has started an initiative to start using student IDs with NFC. Pretty cool idea. You now just don't have to worry about this plastic card. You use your Apple Wallet, and now you have your student ID on you. Hyatt, a hotel, it's pretty cool. They're using NFC door locks. So essentially, instead of giving you a plastic card and you want to use the app, you can use your phone to essentially open the door of your hotel room. They also have a bunch of other cool pieces, and this is kind of the beauty of mobile apps. You can do a bunch of really cool things with the mobile app. They allow you to do a Chromecast if you have an Android phone. They show you the hotel event schedule. So if you're at a hotel that has an event, you'll actually see that. You can order room service from the app. There's a bunch of features that Hyatt has put into their mobile app, which I think is a really cool mobile app that they've developed. With the next one is, Jean-Charles Boisset, JCB Collection. We just heard from him. And he's the most recent wine producer to put in NFC. These are guys that have the vision. They know what the future is coming, and the experience, the exclusive content that Jean-Charles is going to provide you when you tap that bottle of wine of his. I can't imagine. It's going to be pretty incredible. But JCB Collection just announced that they're putting NFC on their bottles of wine. Apple and Google Pay, as I mentioned. Wine and spirits, there's a multiple of them doing. All of our partners do QR code or NFC. Restaurant and hospitality. Almost every restaurant now has QR codes to access the menus, as well as hotels, even during the pandemic that didn't have room service or front desk, they had QR codes at the front where you could check in and learn more about the winery and what services were available. And in the grocery store, I love going into grocery stores these days. Grocery stores, they have, all of them have QR codes on them these days. You go pick up a piece of bread, a Kit Kat bar, all these pieces of food, and it's a company that's called Smart Label, and they have it's like a partnership that I've understood, that they are putting QR codes pretty much on all the grocery and all the food items out there. So what are some use case examples where you can use smart products? From a consumer's point of view, what you get is you get a direct connection to you as a producer. You can use them in virtual tasting and online events to actually, like an accessory to add to that event. You can get authentic product information because it's coming from you, from the producer. The purchases are smart and convenient. You can learn more, like pairings, recipes, when to drink, direct notifications via in-app notifications on the phone, new product notifications, and you can share the information with your friends. On the producer side, you can connect directly to that customer. You get a pre and post engagement with the consumer, which is pretty cool. You can create marketing and promotions through a mobile app or a mobile experience. You can increase conversions through promotions, incentives, direct notifications. You can run an A/B test. If you don't know what an A/B test is, it's like you can take the same product and run two different type of campaigns and see which campaign is more successful. Say you're trying to, evaluate in a market, which store maybe is the better one with whatever campaign. So A/B is used a lot in the tech industry to see what features work and what features don't. You can capture consumer data. You can get their preferences, the buying habits. You can see the customer journey. You can see what they're doing, and then you can update content in real time. It's again back to the dynamic piece. By having dynamic content, or in a dynamic QR code or an NOC, you can constantly update and change those campaigns and do that all real time. From a distributor, you can use the technology to do digital product catalogs with detailed information and provide that evergreen content, which is always up to date. You can easily promote and promote featured products. You can reduce overhead costs, stale data of static printed materials. I know my co-founder Jason Driver, he talks to distributors all the time and about wines that they have, and they're sending him Excel spreadsheets. And it sounds like a pretty frustrating experience where with digital, you can just give them a phone or an app that has that information. You have, you could do sales rep incentive engage. You could gamify the sell, and you can provide the sell sheets and collateral. We are working with Brickler Vineyards. Mark Hansen, one of the proprietors over there and one of the owners, he wanted a sales feature where you can take the sell sheets that he has and put them on the BottleVin app and be able to share those out. So right now we're working on a piece that will actually help his sales team be able to sell wine through the sales sheets and using them by phone, because everyone has a phone with them all the time, and typically both of you do. So it's just like sharing that information through the share feature of iPhone and Android. So here's some product marketing examples you can take a look at. I'm just going to go highlight through all of them if you want to read more about them. But again, JCB collection, we heard from Jean-Charles earlier with George, but he again, future visionary, understands what this can do, and just the engaging content you can produce behind the NFC chips. Decoy voice apps. They announced that they were going to do. They've had a Google and Alexa voice app, and that voice apps are getting to start to be really popular. I recently turned my house into an Alexa-fied house, and my wife and my mom and everyone, when they come over, are just saying, Alexa, turn on the lights. So Decoy, another early adopter on voice apps. Pepsi, they did a live QR during the Super Bowl for Pepsi cans, to an engaging campaign on that one. On wines, they did a capsule that had the built-in NFC chip. The Malibu rum, they did both NFC and QR on a bottle to engage with their customer. And then Ralph Lauren, I am I'm a Gen Xer, and polo clothing was the thing back in the day in the 80s, and so Ralph Lauren has actually announced that he's going to be putting QR codes on all their apparel. So again, smart product examples, and it's happening right now. So BottleVin, we are a smart platform campaign, meaning you can manage all your content, you can create content, you can, we essentially assist many wineries on how to help them with if they want to do QR codes, if they want to do NFC, they want to do label recognition even. We provide a whole platform that can easily get you up and running on that. And so these are some of the campaigns we've done with our partners, and wanted to kind of give you an example. If you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me. You can go to my LinkedIn profile, but that's probably the best way to just a direct message to me. But again, here's some examples. Our three wineries that we partner with, and also were our pilots, were Reynolds Family Winery, Bricoleur Vineyards, and Balboa Winery. Reynolds is up in Napa, Bricoleur is up in Windsor, Sonoma area, and Balboa is up in the Walla Walla, Washington area. Every one of their bottles have either an NFC or QR code starting from 2018. We have them enabled in our mobile app as well as a web responsive connected experience, meaning if you don't have the mobile app, you can still scan the QR code or tap the NFC chip. And what will happen is you'll go into a mobile web responsive site. You still get a lot of great content and information on that wine, but you get even an elevated experience, you could say, if you go and download the mobile app. But the beauty about that, it's always available from anywhere you are. We did wine club events and promotions with the smart bottles. The very first event we did with Steve Reynolds was with his Steadfast allocated wine. And it was really successful. We had over 1,300 scans of that. We made a special video that Steve talked about Steadfast wine and gave you a bunch of details on the wine itself. And so that is a really great promotion that we ran. We also did sweepstakes. There was also with Bricoleur, we did a COVID consent form and dynamic tasting menus using Commerce 7. Commerce 7, we partnered with them for a while. Love Commerce 7 and Zach and everyone over there. We integrated the COVID consent form with a QR code generated by BottleVin that would lead you to the Commerce 7 WordPress site where they could now do an online consent form. Recently, the end of COVID last year, we were talking with Dry Farm Wines. They're one of the larger wine clubs out there. And they wanted to do a custom branded mobile app based off the platform pieces we have. And so we created a custom branded mobile app for them, which we started in January, and we just released we did a soft launch in May, and we did the full launch in June. And this is a fully custom branded app that we worked with their team, their development team. It was all done. They wanted label recognition. So what happens is on all their wines, if you get a wine club shipment, you scan the label with the mobile app, and you'll get all the information behind that wine. They've been doing a great job of doing mobile app notifications. So they do real-time on-demand notifications about featured wines and growers that they work with. And those come into the mobile app. You will see that as a normal notification, like you do with any other notifications with your Android or your iPhone device. And then they have a homepage that shows featured stories on their products and their partners. So it gives you just a lot of information about the brand itself. And then in February of 2020, just before the pandemic, we did a event called the Les Sommelier tasting event. It was about 50 people, nice turnout. We were able to provide all the wineries that attended the contact information for all the attendees. Some cool demographics we got where the average age of the attendee was 50. The percentage of males were 49, the percentage of females were 39%, and the less were unknown. So we are very sensitive to the privacy issues. And so all those pieces of information, male, female, and unknown, those are all opt-in pieces when you sign up for the app. So that's how we got that information. Okay, so if you want to just, try to take a spin with BottleVin, here's some examples of labels that we have with our partners. There's the URL link right there to download. Bicolor Vineyards is actually one of the real labels from their 2020 Rosé Grenache. You can see there's a QR code right there and a UPC label, which you can scan with the app. You can also scan the Reynolds Family Winery Pinot Noir Rosé, their 2017, with our label scanner. It's a really, really cool and engaging experience when you do this. I wish I could do NFC virtual with you guys, but unfortunately you have to have a physical bottle with you there. But what I want to say in closing is that I hope as producers and wineries that you guys start looking into some of these smart campaigns and turning your bottles and your literature. It's not just bottles, it's literature, it's anything that you use for promotions, adding it, at least a QR code to it. But if you can do NFCs, it's even better. But I hope if you guys need any help, feel free to contact us at BottleVin. There's an email form. You can go on BottleVin.com. You can go to LinkedIn and email me. You can send me some messages inside the chat window that's live right now. But we've been helping a lot of wineries help with these digital campaigns and making their bottles smart and create IoT devices. So thanks again for having me, and I hope everyone enjoyed this conference.
Well, that concludes the inaugural packXplore. I want to thank Jean-Charles, Ed Rice, and Paul Salcedo for presenting today for our final session. Obviously, I want to thank all of you and our audience for taking time to be with us. I hope there were some really good takeaways for you, and it gave you some ideas on how you might be able to adopt some of this technology going forward. And finally, of course, I want to thank all of our sponsors for your support. We would not be able to offer these free conferences without that. So thanks, everyone. Stay safe, and I look forward to seeing everyone in person in the not too distant future.